The galaxy was loud again, not with the screams of dying civilizations or the thunderous collapse of dying stars, but with the roar of a spacebike engine that could shatter moons. Lobo, the main man, the last Czarnian galactic bounty hunter extraordinaire, spat a glob of acidic saliva into the vacuum of space, where it vaporized instantly. The massive figure kicked back on his custom, skull-adorned bike, a trail of destroyed asteroids drifting behind him. He had just finished a job that involved punching out a sun god and dragging his incinerated remains back to a client who paid in kegs of blood wine and a planet-sized arsenal. But his rest would be short-lived. A hollow screen crackled to life on his console. The bounty was massive. Target, Saitama, alias One Punch Man. Location, Earth. Power level, unknown. Threat level, absurd. Payment, the lost key to Czarnia's forbidden vault and eternal dominion over Sector Blacklight. Lobo grinned, baring his fanged teeth. The bald geek's gonna be a splat mark on my boot. Saitama stood quietly at the supermarket, holding a leek in one hand and a discount coupon in the other. The breeze rustled his iconic yellow cape as he stared blankly at the checkout screen. "Buy 2 cabbages, get 1 free, he muttered. Tempting. Suddenly, the sky tore open. A sound like a chainsaw ripping through a dragon's spine echoed through the city. Civilians scattered in chaos as Lobo's interstellar hog descended in a violent blaze, crushing cars and streetlights, embedding itself into the pavement like a meteor on fire. Lobo stepped off casually, flipping his dreadlocks over his shoulder. Standing well over 7 feet, clad in leather and chains, he looked like a nightmare that had been kicked out of hell for being too much trouble. He sniffed the air, cracked his knuckles, and squinted. "There you are, Baldy." Saitama turned around, face blank. He squinted. "You, the target. One punch joke or whatever. You're coming with me, dead or very, very dead. Preferably in chunks." Saitama blinked. "I'm grocery shopping." Lobo cracked his neck, then yanked out a spiked chain from behind his back. "Then I'll bag you up with your veggies." Alerts screamed across the control room dashboard. Satellites picked up a hostile extraterrestrial descending on Z City with a power signature that rivaled an S-class threat. Genos stood beside the monitor, his eyes narrowing. "That energy, it's not human. Metal Knight, connected remotely," added in a cold monotone. "He could be a threat even to Tatsumaki or Blast. But Saitama is already on site." Silence, then murmurs. Someone asked the question no one wanted to. "Do we even need to mobilize if it's Saitama?" A massive crater had formed from Lobo's landing. Rubble smoldered. Civilians had fled. The Hero Association had already deployed drones for containment, but they hovered uselessly above. Saitama stood there, plastic bag in one hand, looking unimpressed. "You sure about this?" he asked, voice bored. Lobo grinned. "I flattened gods with a belch. You? You look like you lost a bet with a hairdryer." Saitama sighed. "Look man, I don't really want to fight today. I just wanted some vegetables. I want to fight. So guess what happens now?" Lobo lunged, faster than a meteor, strength enough to crater planets, and slammed his fist towards Saitama's face. But the bold hero had already sidestepped casually, as if dodging a falling leaf. Lobo stumbled forward, confused. Saitama was now standing beside him, checking his grocery bag. "You almost crushed my eggs." Lobo snarled. "Good. Now I'll crush the rest of you." Far away in a hidden dimension, a tribunal of ancient entities, the Council of Devourers, watched the event unfold through a rift. "This Saitama is unnatural," one said. "He bends the laws of physics. He exists without limitation." Another whispered, "He has no equal, and thus no purpose. A paradox." A third entity, darker than the void between stars, rasped, "Then send him Lobo." The last Czarnian, chaos incarnate, let their collision be the test. Earlier that morning, Saitama had watered his cactus and looked out his cracked window, yawning. Life had become dull. Fewer monsters, fewer challenges. Even with Garou and the alien invaders, nothing ever made him sweat. He found himself wondering, what's the point of being strong if there's no one left who can actually punch back? He got his answer when Lobo's fist cracked the sky like thunder. Lobo remembered Czarnia, the world he destroyed with his own hands for fun. No morality, no regrets. But buried deep in that chaos was a prophecy that one day he'd face a being who defied death not by immortality, but by irrelevance. A being who wouldn't die, not because he couldn't, but because it wasn't even interesting to do so. And now, he wondered if Saitama was that being. Saitama finally dropped his grocery bag. The ground cracked. Lobo's bike revved in the background, sending seismic ripples through the street. Thunder clouds gathered overhead, though no storm was forecasted. Time itself seemed to slow. The air grew heavy. Lobo grinned. Saitama rolled his shoulders. Then both moved at once, but the punch had not yet been thrown. The silence before the first strike was the kind that made planets tremble. Lobo stood grinning, cracking his knuckles, as if challenging fate itself. His eyes glowed with madness, and his chain spun at his side like a live wire. Saitama stared at him, not with fear, not with rage, just with faint curiosity, like a man wondering if the microwave would finish before he blinked. Then it began. Lobo charged with a yell that shook rooftops. His chain whipped through the air and coiled towards Saitama's neck like a striking serpent. But Saitama tilted his head slightly, just enough. The chain missed by inches, burying itself into a building behind him, slicing through concrete like butter. "Whoa," Saitama muttered, finally raising his eyebrows. "You're not slow." Lobo roared and launched into a barrage, each punch heavier than artillery, his fists fueled by rage, ego, and centuries of violence. He brought down both fists in a hammer strike that cracked the street for blocks. Dust mushroomed skyward. A seismic ripple burst out, flipping cars, shattering windows, and leaving the earth trembling. When the smoke cleared, Saitama was still standing. His cape fluttered gently. A scuff mark sat on his cheek. "Aha," Saitama said, patting his face. "You actually left a mark." Lobo smirked. "That's just the intro, Baldy." With a war cry, he activated a device on his belt. A spike of green energy burst from his chest. Kryptonite-infused plasma, designed to burn even Superman's skin. He drove it into Saitama's side. Nothing happened. Saitama sighed. "Okay, my turn." His fist rocketed forward, moving faster than light, pressure detonating behind it. He punched Lobo square in the gut, sending him flying through 12 skyscrapers, across the city, and into the hills beyond. A crater formed where he landed. For a moment, silence, then rubble shifted. Lobo climbed out, bloodied, but grinning. "Hey, ya hit like an angry god." He coughed, wiping blood from his mouth. "I dig that." They met again mid-air. Punches collided. Shockwaves boomed out like nuclear blasts, carving canyons into the earth below. Each strike from Lobo was met with a counter from Saitama. But unlike every other enemy Saitama had faced, Lobo didn't fall. He laughed through the pain, cracked jokes as bones healed mid-fight, and got nastier the longer it went. Saitama leapt into space, Lobo chasing him beyond the atmosphere. They clashed above Earth's orbit. Lobo grabbed the moon with his chain, swung it like a wrecking ball, and hurled it at Saitama. The bald hero punched it into powder. Saitama dived back toward Earth like a meteor, slamming into Lobo at Mach 50. The impact annihilated a mountain range. Lobo's body was torn apart, limbs scattered in every direction, but they began to regenerate immediately. Back on Earth, the crater stretched for miles. Smoke rose from fractured land. Saitama stood in the center, panting. For the first time, he felt something. Tired. Maybe not. But winded. Certainly. This guy, he whispered, won't go down. Suddenly from behind, Lobo's severed hand clutched Saitama's ankle. A second hand jammed a detonator into his back. A nanite nuke ignited, designed to atomize entire planets. The blast lit up the sky like a second sun. When the dust cleared, Saitama rose from the crater, burned, blackened, but still standing. But Lobo was already above him, regenerated, holding his alien shotgun, loaded with anti-reality slugs, forged from dead timelines. The blast cracked through Saitama's chest, sending him skidding for miles. Lobo stomped down, grabbing Saitama by the head and slamming him through bedrock into the Earth's mantle. Lava burst like fountains. Saitama retaliated, uppercutting Lobo so hard they flew back into the upper atmosphere. Still, it wasn't enough. Saitama, now bloodied and slightly out of breath, launched his most powerful strike. Serious punch. It carved a tunnel through space, erasing clouds, ionizing the air, parting oceans. Lobo took it head on. His body was disintegrated again. For a long moment, Saitama stood in silence. Perhaps it was over. But the sky split. Lobo descended, riding a reborn skeletal version of his space bike, body fully restored but scarred, a chunk of his face still missing. "You pack a wallop, cue ball," he growled. "But I don't die easy. In fact, I don't die at all." Then came the trick. Lobo duplicated. From his blood spilled across the battlefield, dozens of Lobo clones emerged, each one regenerated from a drop, a known cursed ability of the Czarnian genome. They all spoke at once. "You ain't winning, champ." Saitama's eyes narrowed. He clenched his fists and prepared to wipe them all out. But behind him, the original Lobo stabbed him in the back with a black hole grenade. It detonated. Even Saitama staggered. For the first time, he dropped to one knee. Lobo grabbed his neck, chain wrapped tight. "I ain't stronger than you, Baldy," he whispered, blood running from his mouth. "But I don't play fair. I play dirty." Saitama raised a fist, then paused. His body flickered. He looked down at himself and began sinking into a pocket dimension, triggered by the grenade. A trap, a prison, a win, not by power, but by cunning. "Guess that's one punch I dodged." Lobo coughed, spitting a tooth and laughing as the dimension sealed behind him.